Спасибо. Во-первых, спасибо за приглашение. Моя презентация будет более по-английски, чем по-русски, потому что, извините, я не знаю все слов по-русски, поэтому я не хочу быть не такой правильный. Поэтому я думал, если, конечно, вопросы, пожалуйста, давайте вопросы по-русски, я попробую ответить по-русски без проблем. Okay. Most of my presentation will be based on this publication together with Sergey Yerasukhanovskaya and a previous student of mine, which is doing the master at the Bocconi University Milan. It's a paper that will be published in Prikladная econometrica, applied econometrics, я думаю, в следующем году. Но уже есть working paper, можете загрузить из REPEC, из SSRN, где вы хотите. So actually, most of my presentation will focus, of course, on the econometrics of Bitcoin, the econometric modeling of Bitcoin. So let's start. Let's go. I skipped the first part that was already covered by Sergey. Okay. So the topic of today presentation will be about, let's say, the econometrics of users, of Bitcoin users. Because, you know, in standard financial literature, there is a very large part, many papers that try to examine, for example, who use a currency, how they use the currency, so the behavior of people with different currencies. Unfortunately, as is quite clear why, you know, Bitcoin is very, very recent, there is very, very, very few paper, очень низкое количество статей про использователей Bitcoin, about the users of Bitcoin. Actually, there are only two papers at the moment, so really very, very few. And I try to describe to you what they've done. Of course, I'll tell you already now, then we'll see more when we enter their work, their analysis, that this analysis have a lot of limitation, really have a lot of limitation. If there is here probably some extreme econometrician purists who say, oh, this is very, very light econometrics. So, anyway, I would say first of all, it's better something than nothing, first of all. And also the problem, as I already tell you now, is unfortunately that, as you already Sergey told you, you know, one of the main goal of using Bitcoin is to be anonymous. Okay. So if you want to write a paper about the characteristics of Bitcoin user, is extremely difficult, as you may imagine, if people want to remain anonymous. So don't be so hard about maybe this analysis that probably if you have done, I don't know, very hard econometric method, they may seem a little bit easier. Actually, the econometric is quite advanced, particularly the second paper, but still they are very limited. Anyway, remember, it's very, very difficult to get data about Bitcoin users. So, as I said, better something than nothing, okay? So, let's start. The first work by Bor and Bashir, published in 2014, actually analyzed a kind of questionnaire that he collected over time in 2003 among basically Bitcoin community. This is a researcher that was working as an anthropology at the UCL, University College of London, where he collected more than 1,000 basic questionnaires online with talkings and stuff like that. And this is probably at the moment really the largest type of this kind of survey that basically managed this guy, and really I say kudos to him because really he did a very great work. Really, is the first breach in a very world of darkness, because before that there was no analysis at all about the Bitcoin users. So basically, he wanted to know why you are using Bitcoin first. Second is, are you optimistic or not about Bitcoin in the short term and in the long term. And third is basically what are the main characteristics that make you interested in Bitcoin. Basically, as you see in this first paper, basically what it did is a simple regression. Method najmanjših kvadratov, okay, so that it is not econometric, where basically the first regression, actually there's three types of regression. The first regression, it regressed the amount of Bitcoin, so сколько Bitcoin у каждого против list, against a list of characteristics. Which characteristic? This is where the really interesting part of this analysis comes from. So first, as regressor, they use age and age square. Why? Because actually, you find out that basically the accumulation of Bitcoin tend to increase from the young age and reach a maximum, as we'll see, around 50, 55 years old. So this age and age square is entered in order to model this kind of non-linearity. As we'll see, basically, the highest point of accumulation is by people around 50 years old. Then you consider the variable called installation. It's a kind of dummy type of variable, which is one if the Bitcoin user, installed the client, the Bitcoin client in 2009, really at the very beginning, okay, or 17 in the first quarter 2013. So basically, it's the kind of order dummy variable in order to understand when these users have started using Bitcoin. Okay. Also, there is a dummy variable if this Bitcoin user told this researcher if it was a miner or not. Because this is a very important variable, because of course, as already Sergey explained what is a miner before, this makes quite a lot of difference if you're interested in Bitcoin or not, and why you're interested in Bitcoin. Also, users call interaction term, so multiplying the dummy variable installation time, the dummy miner. Basically, this interaction term is done in order to understand if being an early miner, so among the first, let's say, programmers that started using Bitcoin, gave you an advantage, okay, against instead the late user, maybe like me or someone else, okay. Also, as an econometrician, I also said that try to use, whenever possible, interaction terms in order to better separate the effects of the different regressors. Okay. Also, really, this was very surprised when I analyzed. He managed, so he had the dummy variable, which is called Bitcoin sings. Как син по-русски? Гривек, спасибо. Это фиктивная перемена, это один, если человек говорил, что он использует плохие софтвер, malware, чтобы использовать другие компьютеры, чтобы to mine the Bitcoin. So very bad guy. And this is very interesting, really, very interesting analysis. Actually, I'm surprised that he managed to get the answer about that. But no, it's a very nice. Now he's working for a private company, but at the time was a very famous anthropologic researcher. He was one of the best at the time. So really, he's not a stupid guy. Also, another dummy variables if he lives in the U.S., because at the beginning it was more a U.S. phenomenon. Also, really very interesting regressor. Of course, these are taken from the questionnaire, because you take the question, extract all the variables, and so on. We have another dummy variable which is called illicit goods, which is one if basically the user buy Bitcoin in order to buy narcotics, arms, prostitutes, whatever you want to buy. Okay. So this is in the second aspect of bad guy. Another bad, no, but this is a good one. Another dummy variable is Bitcoin talk. This is one if the Bitcoin user is active in online forums, social sites talking about Bitcoin. This is actually very important. Actually, I already tell you now, in many papers, actually it emerged that people which are involved, let's say, in online forums, social forum, basically, are the ones that actually are usually more involved in trading, and actually have a better knowledge, of course, of Bitcoin, so are the ones that have an advantage in trading. Also, there is a dummy variable which is called investor. This is because in the questionnaire, the researcher asked these Bitcoin users if you feel like an investor. So I go there because I want to invest. I think it's a good startup. I think it's a future of money exchange, or just because you want to do speculate, and that's all. Also, another variable that was extracted from the questionnaire is basically want to separate the reason why you go to Bitcoin. If it is more for profits, you are a nasty speculator that want to make money and goodbye, or you are instead a community because you are kind of libertarian politician thinking, so I think we need decentralized currency, I hate central banking because they are bad and nasty, want a libertarian sort of kind of. I know that you think this is thing, but really there are, particularly the first users were very visionary. Really, they were thinking no more central banking. No, so maybe you were laughing. Unfortunately, it's true. Really, the most of the first miners really were kind of libertarians, people with this long time horizon thinking. Okay. So basically, what emerged from the analysis? Basically, you know. Not surprisingly, the age was probably the most important factors. Basically, you know, and I told you the big part, the highest accumulation of Bitcoin, I told you, is around 50, 60. This actually is a good result because actually is in line with financial literature. The financial literature said that usually is in that age where people accumulate most of the assets. Why? Because you have to prepare for pension. Okay. So at each point in the 60, you need the most of the asset, because after that you will start using those assets as a pension. So this is actually also in line with financial literature. Also, a good result actually was expected that basically interaction term was extremely positive and significant in the sense that really not surprisingly, the early miners, the people that start at the very beginning, of course, is the one that make the more money, where more that benefit the most. Okay. If you were attentive, I don't know if you heard the story, probably Sergey heard it, of that early miner that was really at the very beginning and just mine a little bit just for fun, really. And I don't know how many Bitcoin in mine, but this was the beginning. After a couple of years, basically, what happened? The price of Bitcoin went to 1,000, so huge price spike up. And then, by mistake, these early miners used basically a laptop to mine early at the beginning. Throw away by mistake the laptop in the garbage. So it was a desperation. The news was in English early miner. So it was desperate, and actually he asked the permission to go in this huge garbage dump. You know, this is where they put all the garbage. But the administration, no, because there were thousands of people that wanted to go there to take this laptop, to find this laptop with this couple of, I don't know, 100 Bitcoins there, because basically it was a huge fortune when the Bitcoin was at 1,000. So the early money really make a lot of money. This guy, unfortunately, not, because he threw away the laptop because, you know, we think it was a stupid thing and that. But it's funny because really it was, you know, on the main page of the, you know, like the tabloid, like Daily Mail, The Sun, because really the administration of the garbage dump basically had to stop thousands of people that want to look for this laptop in the garbage. You know, just to tell you the crazy things of this bubble phenomenon. Okay, of course, as I told you, people who are in online communities usually have 2 times the number of Bitcoins that people that don't talk in online communities. Of course, who are more involved in the project have much more Bitcoin, tend to use much more. It's similar, now I think less, but at the time was expected. you know, people who use Bitcoin to buy narcotics, arm, usually have 50% more Bitcoin than people that don't do such nasty things. Okay, so basically Bitcoin is was more at the beginning, say, for speculative issue, for computer programming enthusiasts, or for people that really people that need to do illegal operation most of the time. And also, of course, the same result also emerged from people that use malware to use other computer to mine in Bitcoin. Okay, another similar regression like this one. So the first regression I told you, regress number of Bitcoin that you have accumulated against all these variables. Second regression, your short-term expectation of Bitcoin against all these regressors. The short-term expectation against the regression and the long-term expectation. Where the short-term expectation is 4 months in the future from the survey. So what do you think will be the price of Bitcoin in 4 months? And the long-term, which is at the time 6 years from the questionnaire, from the question. Basically, an interesting things emerge. Basically, that older people usually tend to be much less optimistic. They are more pessimistic about the prospect of Bitcoin. Instead, young people are much more optimistic, which actually in some sense is quite expected, because you know old people tend to fear more for the future than young people. Okay. And also an interesting result that actually even partially expected that the initial miners, so the first miner, were less optimistic about the future of Bitcoin than the late one, the new one. This is quite interesting. So this really was the first type of analysis about Bitcoin use. It was very interesting because it really give you, I think, a first photograph, a first picture, let's say, if I may say, of the so-called first generation of Bitcoin users. So, like computer enthusiasts or people involved in illicit trading, illicit good trading. Even though I tell you now things are changing. And this we come to the limits of this analysis. This analysis has several limits. For example, it was involved only people in the English-speaking sphere of Bitcoin user. Chinese, Russian, European are excluded. Only English people. Plus, really, there were also the same researcher when they compiled and published the paper said that actually the sample may not be representative of the full population. So a kind of sample selection bias, to use the statistical definition. So remember, all the sample that we extract from a population should be representative of that population. No? This is, I думаю, когда мы сделали статистику, на третьей лекции они говорят вам that the sample, the small number of people from the population should be more or less represented, should be random, representing all the aspects. Unfortunately, this analysis have a strong bias, so you have to be a little bit careful. Also, another limit of this analysis that, of course, it came before the famous bankruptcy of Mt. Gox trading. So this is kind of where I think was kind of a changing point, really, on the Bitcoin community. Also because there is a very way of saying, I think there is also the Russian homologue, I don't know, that everything that does not kill you make you stronger. I think should be also the rationale for that. And really, even though the Mt. Gox bankruptcy was a difficult moment for the Bitcoin community, as you mentioned, big scandal and everything. Anyway, makes the system much more strong in a perspective. So this is why it could be really, if as a econometrician, I would say that the Mt. Gox bankruptcy is a kind of structural break let's say, in the analysis. Oh, sorry, how much time do I have? It's not clear here. Okay. How much time? Sorry, because there is. I don't see the monitor. Sorry.
It's got 1 hour.
1 hour. Okay. Because here the monitor is all black, so I don't see the time. Okay. Let's move to the second type of analysis. On this second type of analysis, actually, I will try to also show some example in EViews also, and also how to do it more or less, how to replicate partially this analysis. Basically, when you try to examine Bitcoin users, of course, the problem is how can I get information about them? Because of course they want to be anonymous and so on. So one way to solve it was a very clever idea. Let's use the data from Google Trends. Вопрос для вас. Вы все знаете, что это Google Trends? Кто не знает?
Translation.
No. Google Trends. Google Trends. Google Trends. No? Okay. Все знают, да? Нет. Okay. Сейчас объясню. Это жалко, что, наверное, если интернет есть, потом покажу. Но потом мне нужно монитор смотреть. Потом, это когда мы сделаем прикладный пример, потому что, к сожалению, это не видно, я не могу работать. Да. Когда пойдем прикладный пример, видите. Сейчас везем, без проблем. Вы знаете, Google началось дать возможность несколько лет назад получить бесплатно данные с Google Trends. Что это Google Trends? Сейчас объясню. Я хочу купить машину Volkswagen Golf. Я люблю Volkswagen Golf. Я хочу знать, где я могу купить. Пойду в Google, Volkswagen Golf 6, академическая, например. Я живу в академической. Окей. E non perché все магазины, все автомашины, which sell Volkswagen Golf close to академический. Google save all your quest. Okay, not only about cars. Of course, if you are looking for porn, for sex, also Google saves that. So everything. So Google saves all the searches that you do. Google Trends give you the time series in beautiful CSV format of the standardized volume of the searches for a keyword like Volkswagen, okay, Golf, or ili snimak kvartiru, okay? So in a sense, it was in itself kind of a revolution, because with Google Trends you have the possibility to have a look at the demand of people, really. Usually before Google Trend, people were using questionnaires, something like that, but questionnaires are very, very limited. Google Trend has an access of worldwide a million of searches. Actually, every month there are a couple of billion of searches. So Google Trend tell you how many times people in a week search for Volkswagen, okay, and give us a time series. So this is great, really, for me. It's kind of dream come true, really. I'm writing a couple of papers. Basically, I'm driving my. Я пишу сейчас мою докторскую диссертацию про это. Уже публиковал 7 статей. Еще нужно 8 писать. So because really, it's a huge possibility. And это еще лучше, это бесплатно. Это не как Twitter. Twitter это плохое, они плохие. Нет деньги. Есть Twitter, есть система тоже, которая дает сколько раз есть хэштег Volkswagen. Но, к сожалению, это не бесплатно. Это очень дорогое. Было 2 года назад, когда для 3 месяца они дали бесплатно. Потом сейчас ты можешь попробовать писать Twitter, мне нужно эти данные, пожалуйста, эти данные меня. Но это не всегда не говорит да или нет. Google Trends все бесплатно. So, as you understand, Google Trends, actually the only limit of Google Trends is that it gives you the standardized volume between 0 and 100. Okay, means there's no 100. Это не реальное количество ищения. It's not the real search. 132,000 searches. No, it's the standardized volume. Okay. It's standardized between 0 and 100. Okay. This is a little bit of limit, but really not too much, because if you want to do only for regression, for explaining, it's not a problem. Actually, also Google does a very good thing. These Google Trends data are standardized also against the increasing time trend. This is good because if you remember from the first lecture of Econometric 1 course, there is a very high risk of spurious trend if you have this kind of time trend. Instead, Google knows that the number of users increases over time, so it's standardized for this. So this gives you much more robust trend than the simple number. There is a similar service also for Yandex. Называется wordstat.yandex.ru. Тоже бесплатно, нужно только сделать регистрацию, но это бесплатно. Но проблема Яндекса, к сожалению, они сохраняют только последние 2 года. Я не понимаю, Google Trend дают данные из 2004 году. Без проблем. Google Яндекс. Яндекс только последние 2 года. У меня были студенты, которые попробовали спросить Яндекс, пожалуйста, это похоже, что Яндекс реально не сохраняет данные. Для меня это глупости, потому что ты потеряешь бизнес. Это данные, которые ты можешь использовать для бизнеса, понимать, что люди хотят, что ты можешь делать рекламу. Это большой, они не сохраняют, не знаю почему. Цена на сервере упадут каждый месяц, поэтому не знаю, почему это не сделали. Но проблема, вы знаете, я теперь бы использовал Яндекс, потому что, конечно, Яндекс для нас это более важно, чем Google. Но, как вы понимаете, 2 года, это значит 24 данные, если месячные. И, к сожалению, эти недельные даты Яндекс дает вам только последний год, это 53 данные. Вы понимаете, что регрессия, которая использует 24 данные, не такой сильный регрессия. Ты не можешь сделать прогнозировать, не можешь делать ничего. Это чуть-чуть... Но, слава богу, я видел, что когда мы взяли тренд из Google и тренд из Яндекс, мы видели, что они почти тренды похожи. Корреляция, все нелинейная корреляция, это очень высокая. Мы можем использовать Google тренд как хороший прокси для России тоже, если... Но посмотрим в будущем, как будет. Окей. Возвращаем нашу статью. So, what Yelowitz and Wilson did it in this nice paper published in 2004, at the end actually 2014. Basically, they take the Google Trends data in this way. First, as a regressor, как зависимая переменная, скажем так, we have the number of searches for Bitcoin in the category currency. Сейчас объясню. Вы знаете, вы можете загрузить данные количества ищений для Bitcoin. Но вы знаете, проблема это эти ищения, these searches may include searches which are not related to Bitcoin but to something else. Okay, this is one of the problem of brutal searches. Okay. For example, I did a paper dealing with the coal plants, plant который использует уголь. In the US, so we analyze which coal plant survive or not. And we found, for example, that in those states which where most of the coal plants closed, there was a huge protest. So people were searching for about coal, legal action and stuff like that. But if we were using only coal, a lot of searching were referring to coal in China. So you have to be very careful when you download Google Trends data. One way to get a little bit more reliable number of searches is not to take the brutal search for Bitcoin, but to use Bitcoin for a specific category. Google has this policy that if the search term is above a certain amount, it should be 1 billion a month, I remember, there are some categories, okay, which basically clean the search from searches which are not related, okay. So this is one way so you search category currency. So in order to eliminate searches which are not related to the currency field. Also, this has dependent variable. Then we have computer science. So people looking for computer science topic in the category discipline, okay. While the other alternative variable that try to explain the interest in Bitcoin, because this researcher wanted to explain why people look for Bitcoin. These two guys want to say why people are searching for Bitcoin, why they're looking for information about Bitcoin. So they search for possible reasons. Computer science. So I'm a computer expert. I'm like Sergey. I want to do a new system, and so computer science related searches. I'm a bad guy. So illegal activity. How can I proxy the searches for illegal activity? For that, they use the search term Silk Road. I think most of you knows the story about this Silk Road, I think, but a part probably not. I tell you, Silk Road was this kind of marketplace of illicit goods, of all type possible illicit goods, so the baddest of all possible illicit, from narcotics to arms and whatever. That actually worked till 2013, till was closed from when it was first closed from the FBI. Then there was Silk Road 2, was closed also by the FBI 1 year later. Then there seems to be another Silk Road 3, but there are many other places. So Silk Road actually was used because this research is till 2013, 2014. It represented basically the key illegal trading using Bitcoin. Okay. Of course, now there are many other places. There are different darknet where you can get nasty things and so on. But Silk Road basically was a good proxy for representing all possible illicit uses of Bitcoins. Okay. This is the second variable. Third variable, free market. This search basically is basically in order to try to separate, let's say, kind of libertarians, people that really want easy market, open market, free market. So in order to separate so-called political reason about completely free market libertarians. And finally, it's make money, so purely speculators that want to make money from the movement of Bitcoin prices. So, so what they do, they downloaded this time series from January 2011 to July 2013. So you have 13 months, and they did this for each US state. First limitation, only for the US, I'm sorry. Of course, in the future, maybe other papers with different countries, but this is only for the US, again. And they did this for the search about Bitcoin and for the regressors, so the other motives, so computer enthusiasts, illegal activity, libertarians, and speculative investors. Okay. Then they standardize it. They used to call this score. This score is basically when you standardize a variable by is the variable minus the mean divided the standard deviation. This is a classical procedure that many statisticians do it in order to say decrease the problem of dimensionality, because when you do a regression, if you have a variable very big and another variable very small, you can have really numerical problems. So you can do this standardization, a simple standardization. This is the good point of the score. So to standardize all the variables in order to make more equal, so simplify the regression. Problem. This is a time series, is a panel data is the panel data time series. If you do the z-score, you know, you are basically, remember, the z-score is variable minus the mean divided standard deviation. Attention, by doing that, you are putting in the variable information which is in the future. So you are changing a little bit the data. If you analyze data in cross-section, this is not a big problem. But if you analyze time series data like this one, subtracting the mean and standardized, basically you are inserting in the data some future information which is not present at the beginning of the data. So there are pros and cons in doing this. I understand that, of course, this simplifies the numerical estimation, but on the other, you change really the properties of the data. So, what kind of regression do they do? They do classical panel regression, okay, panel data regression. Okay. Question, have you ever done some basic panel data regression? Which never done panel data regression? Okay.
Понять, как это по-русски. Regression.
Да, это панельный регресс.
Нет, не делал.
Что происходит?
Я бы чуть-чуть.
Нет, понятно.
Можно секундочку? So the panel data, let's say, is probably the most complex type of regression. Okay, because you have a paydex, an index for the variable, and an index for the time. Okay, so you have both time and cross-section. Okay, usually in a panel data, in a classical panel data, what you have? Few time series, наверное, 2-3 года, наверное, 4, so niska, very few data in time series, but a very large cross section, J. So, классический panel data, это у вас 1 миллион данных про каждый человек и, наверное, 3-4 года, the classical survey that you have. So in this case, when you have very few time series, you cannot use the classical method of time series because you have a huge number of cross sections. You cannot estimate anything. So you use panel data econometrics. Okay. Of course, there are several methods. There are several problems because in panel data econometrics, you basically I give you simply the idea. I'm sorry if I'm simplifying too much, but really I want to give you the idea for those that never done it. Basically, the idea is to the classical regression in cross-section, but to use also the information for the time variable in very простые слов, in very direct way. Basically, panel regression, it's a simple regression where you do the average across time in order to make the regression more robust. This is the idea, actually. Of course, there are different types of this, but just to give you the idea. Because, of course, you can have additional information with this time index. So, you regress my Bitcoin search interest against all potential interests. I told you, computer programmers, illicit goods, libertarians, and speculators. Okay. This delta J, delta T, are so-called fixed effects. Okay. Delta J is the state fixed effect. So.
Пошевелить нужно немножко. Нет. Заснул, слип.
Да, конечно, устал тоже. So, delta T is a fixed effect for each state, for each US state. And delta J. Delta T instead is a fixed effect for each time. This fixed effect, again, just to give an idea, of course, without any too much detail, are basically done in order to eliminate possible bias in the estimation. Okay. Actually, there are several ways to do fixed effect. Of course, everyone that has done panel data econometrics knows that there are random effects, fixed effect, different type of in between, and so on. Here, of course, they did fixed effect also because they are simpler to estimate and so on. To make really indirect sort without really doing a classical Если нужно, у меня сейчас даю.
Чужой зарядник не принимаю.
Упал все. Спасибо. Okay, so I told you this fixed effect, let's say, is the way just to make the estimate robust. Because in a panel regression, if you don't consider this specific effect for each state or for each time, your estimate can be biased. This is the idea. They are not correct. Okay. Okay. So what did they find? So basically, just to give you an idea, because I really love this paper because they did a lot of robustness check, really a lot of possible alternative specification. Remember, given most of you are young, I hope we will continue in academia. Remember, when you write a paper, the second part of the paper, most of the time, is so-called robustness check. So, what is a robustness check? It's basically you change the specification of your model to see if the result remain the same. Okay, they use a lot of robustness check. Really, after the paper is about robustness check. So they add control variable like unemployment, a placebo variable. What is a placebo variable? A placebo variable is a variable which has nothing to do with the topic. Nothing to do. In fact, as placebo variable, they choose the number of searches about Miley Cyrus. You know that sexy American singer, that a little bit crazy singer actually. But they use this number of searches about this American singer, okay? And they found out that it's not significant. This is good, really. It means that the regression is robust, okay? It's a kind of in statistics it's called also a kind of falsification test. Is also called. Basically, you add a variable that has nothing to do with the topic, and if your regression is robust, that variable should not be significant. Try to do it, because if you find that it's significant, something is not good. Something is wrong, completely wrong. I sometimes, if I found that the paper, for example, as a referee several paper here, that there are some strange result, I ask you, try to do this placebo and see how the result change. And in some cases, the author will have a problem to find that the variable is not significant. So this is a way to check the results are good. Also, they change different time sample. Also, again, so add new variable, change the specification, change the time specification. This is very, very important if you have time series. So if, for example, in my field, the finance or energy econometrics, the result changed before and after the global crisis in 2008. So change the sample. This is very, very important. Okay. Also, a sub-selection of your state. Do they change the result? So in all these cases, the result remains the same. What are the results? So here we come. Basically, and confirming the first paper that we saw today, this morning, they found that the Bitcoin searches are explained only by two variables, which are computer enthusiasts, computer programists, and people interested in illicit good, in doing trading with illicit good. The political motivation, like libertarians, or the speculative motivation up to 2013 were not significant. I told you, this paper again is, if we can say again, the first generation type of Bitcoin use. So the first one. So enthusiasts, computer programmers, and people doing illegal trading. Okay. I think, and I really hope so, to see some new paper that after 2013, after 2014, particularly after the bankruptcy of Mt. Gox, the result changed. I expect that there is a decrease in the importance of computer programming and illicit good, instead a much increase in people that want to make money, particularly speculator investors, and maybe a little bit more libertarians, because there's a lot of discussion going on about it. Okay, so time for some application. Sergey, можно? Спасибо. хочу показать Google Trend, если работает. Не работает.
Ну, вот сюда.
На самом деле работает на том, что с другой стороны. Там нормально. А здесь
Интернет один.
Я ходил, бегал, намайнил несколько бит интернета, отправил почту.
Okay, I leave it open. No, нет. К сожалению, нет.
Ну ладно,
So, я думаю, вы уже получили, но, Вена, если нет, спросите администратор Лена, она будет давать вам материалы для этих 3 лекции. Сегодня, завтра первый, завтра второй. Где все данные материалы, которые я буду использовать. Окей, если у вас уже есть эта папка First Lectures, что здесь внутри? Здесь, here there is the Google Trend searches for Bitcoin in China, for the Bitcoin topic in China, Bitcoin topic in UK, Bitcoin in the US. Это видно, да? Да, видно. Also, the Google Trend search for computer science in China, UK and US. The searches for make money in China, UK and US. And the searches for Silk Road in China, UK and US. So, plug it in just. Actually, I clean it a little bit, but the structure basically the same, remain the same. Here is basically what you get. I know it's actually the original. Is the structure давай так. Что это более на секундочку, я более... No, положу здесь, то это видно. Секундочку. Я думаю, это все видно, да? So, this actually is the CSV that you get from Google Trend. So, see, web search Bitcoin. This actually is the topic. In China, 2004 and present, interest of a week, and big, of course, is 0 in 2004. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Оп! Начинаем. Начинаем чуть-чуть мало, начало. Это, видите, очень мало, 2011, очень мало. Потом начинаем большой интерес в 2013 году. Начинается большой интерес. Потом увеличил очень большой, собственно, да. Потом мы будем использовать для нашей работы... Почему это? Только эти данные. Видите, это недельные, каждую неделю. Okay? This data. But I'll make you show also for your interest, in the report by Google Trend, there is also additional data that can be interesting for additional analysis. For example, it shows you the top sub-region in this period of time for Bitcoin. So the region where there was the highest Bitcoin sale was at Tianjin, Guangdong, Shanghai, and so on. Remember, this is the highest searching relative term. Of course, the highest term are in Shanghai and Peking. But here we're talking about, in relative term, which region has the highest term. So the highest term is Tianjin. Okay. Also, there are the top searches for Bitcoin. Of course, there is Chinese, not readable. But there is also BTC, Gal, Bitcoins, and so Litecoins. There are also something related, not directly, but they're like Litecoin, Wallet, Empty Ghost, OK Sign, and so on. And also rising searches. So the rising searches represent the recent most biggest searches. So these are kind of additional information. Can be important, but actually never used particularly. So, couple of comments. Usually, this is the standardized search in this week. Usually, when import the data in every software, can be EU, Stata, R, Matra, whatever, I take only the second date. So the 10th of January, the 17th of January, and so on. Just you can clean the data here, probably it's easy in Excel, in R, even better, or you can do in other software. So you just eliminate the first column and keep the date and the Bitcoin. Okay, so you do this for all of them. Of course, you can do this manually, or you can do with R. Before we go to do the analysis by Wilson and Davidson, I want to also tell you a couple of things more about Google Trends. So here is a topic that I usually go to the students. Я понимаю, что когда вы поедете в Google Trend, нажимать, download, CSV, нажимать, download, это очень скучно. Я понимаю, это очень скучно. Специально, когда вы должны делать 1000 раз или больше. Есть две packages, actually one, because Google Trend unfortunately is archive, is not no more used, but it's still working. So there are two R package, particularly G-Trends R is the official package, which is on CRAN, which standardize the search. So if you want to do a little bit standardized without pressing and getting crazy, use G-Trends R. The only problem with this at the moment, maybe in the future will be changed, is not yet possible to, it's possible to select the search for the state, for a single state, or for a category, but it's not yet possible to download the search for the topic. Remember, if it is a very high topic, above 1 billion searches, Google give you the possibility to download the search only for that topic without searching for category, which is bad. Unfortunately for G-Trends R, this is not yet possible. Anyway, there are some compromises. Google Trends also is quite good. Then a third possibility, it is a nice collection of R codes proposed by Eric Johansson. Why I propose this link? Because I remember a thing that I have to tell you. Google Trends usually, I'll tell you now, Google Trends usually give you weekly data. In some cases, when the number of searches are very, very few, it may give you monthly data, but it's quite rare. So it's very, very, but now it's only weekly data. Problem, for example, now it's very, very fancy, очень модный. Использовать данные Google Trends, чтобы вы можем прогнозировать цена акций. Почему? Потому что если люди ищут Microsoft stock, Apple stock, это значит, people хотят купить или продавать. Цена, акция, Microsoft, акция и так далее. Поэтому сейчас люди используют данные Google для прогнозировать акции или другие вещи. Проблема, эти данные обычно это daily, каждый день. Google это недельный, every week. Okay? How can I standardize it to daily? How can I standardize it to daily? Я хочу каждый день, не каждую неделю, потому что цена акции это каждый день. Google Trends, это странная политика. Если вы берете данные из 2004 года, это недельный, каждую неделю. Если вы берете данные на последние 3 месяца, или только для 3 месяца, он дает вам данные каждый день. So, что должен делать? Вы должен загрузить каждые 3 месяца, последние 3 месяца, потом 3 месяца before, 3 months before, 3 months before, 3 months before, 3 months before. Понимаете, если это должен сделать ручной, это кошмар. Это один день только это загрузить данные. Здесь есть несколько программистов, понимаете, это кошмар. Эрик Йоансон, он писал очень хороший R-скрипт, который загрузит данные недельные и каждый день. And then he standardized in the sense that he compared the daily data with the weekly, and then with the comparison he make daily for all the time series from 2004. Okay, so this is a link, is in the material that you have, you will get. So please have a look, because if you want to do something more professional, more advanced, that program may be of help, because otherwise you get crazy downloading all this CSV. Small things, another most...
Какая-то проблема.
Be cable.
Okay. Also, a couple of comments more for people that want to download a lot of Google Trends data. Не использовать Google Chrome. Использовать Firefox, Opera, Safari, что видите. Потому что Google Chrome после 100 раза, которые вы загрузили, блокирует. Говорит, нет, невозможно. Первый раз я говорю, что я не сделал право, я почему остановил на 100, я не писал где-нибудь, что остановить. Потом я читал на форум Google Chrome stop the downloads after the 100. This is automatic because I did automatically. So use another one. Plus, if this is the first limit. Plus, if you do really many times, I think there is a maximum limit, I don't know, 3,000 a day by Google. So you really have to change IP or use a VPN, something like that. Because after a total, I don't remember if it's 3,000, I don't remember the limit, a day, Google really stops you and block. By the way, if you want to download the data, you need a Google account. Не используй ваш email аккаунт. Потому что если вы загрузите более чем 3000, Google блокирует ваш аккаунт. Временно блокирует. So, используй глупый аккаунт, не ваш официальный, пожалуйста. Используй ваши, если сделаете примеры, но если вы хотите загрузить 1000 раз. Потому что если очень быстро, и он видит, понимает, он блокирует, потому что это его политика, что это не дать все данные. Okay, so this is everything about Google. Это мой ошибка, извините. Окей. Возвращаем обратно. So, я чистил все данные и поставил на Evius. Okay. Давай начинаем первый шаг. So, здесь у нас Bitcoin, China, видите, недельный, 0. So, это time series на Evius. Конечно, вы выберете сам, какие софтвер вы хотите использовать, что вы можете чистить данные. Потому что вы, как я сказал, вы должен сохранить только информацию про недели, информацию про Google Data. Все. Остальные должны все выбросить. Okay. Выберите сами. Stata, MATLAB, C++, Python. Что вы более любите. Это как вам удобно. Окей. У нас данные про Bitcoin, China, UK, US, Computer Science, China, and so on. Я хочу сделать panel regression. Но для этого нужно строить панельные дата. Это Word файл. Word файл это объект, где мы сохраняем все данные видеos. Эти данные, они как временный рядок, как as time series, not as a panel data. This is time series. The panel data should be in a special structure. Как это я могу сделать? Я использую IR, потому что очень простой. Стата это чуть-чуть длиннее, IR еще уже, ты должен писать программу только для этого. Если видите панель из этого, это очень просто. Это proc, reshape, current page, stack. Proc, reshape, current page, stack. Это самые быстрые методы, которые я нашел, трансформировать данные, как анализировать на панель. Сами быстрые. Потому что стат это должен писать чуть-чуть, должен писать один страница код, поэтому это самые быстрые. Reshape, so proc, reshape, stack. I have to tell eViews a variable which basically identify a variable which has the same name but different ending. Basically, in eViews, if I have Bitcoin, this is my variable, and then underscore something else, this represents the identification. So I make Bitcoin, so Bitcoin, question mark, okay, I tell you, my variable is Bitcoin. The identification will be defined by what is after. So with the question mark, I tell EViews all that come after Bitcoin is my identification, is my cross-section identifier. Ok. Vidite, сейчас у нас здесь новая страница, Untitled, which is a panel data. Видите, range 2011-2016 на 3 is a panel now. You see Bitcoin, you see, you have Bitcoin for China, you see, the classical panel structure, China with the time series for China, then UK time series, and you see, US time series. Classical panel structure, ID time series, ID time series, ID time series, a classical time structure. Сейчас, это тоже и это сделать для всех переменных. Computer Science, China time series, UK time series, US time series и тоже самые остальные. Make money. Это самые быстрые методы, которые я нашел. Быстро, чем это невозможно. То же стат, это медленно, должен чуть-чуть поработать побольше. У вас панел очень быстро. Это достаточно. Вы даете ему имя, не переменное, имя, и потом question mark. Что это говорите? Question mark – это мой identifier. Okay? И он будет строить ваш панел. Все переменные, и with the together, so time series ID, and so on. Сейчас время оценивать regression. Конечно, это необычный панель. Я уже хочу говорить сейчас, это необычный панель. Почему? Потому что, как видите, наши cross-section это только 3. US, UK, China. Это необычный панель, обычно 1000, миллион. Это пример, извините, потому что я не хотел загрузить все страны мира, я был чуть-чуть ленивый, это я хочу показать только пример. Okay? Как это за потом вы для вашего будете делать, что вы хотите. Поэтому, конечно, панель это на 100, на 1000, на миллион. Но это маленький пример. Okay? Yeah.
Yeah, for the camera, can you move the windows more to the center?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So sorry, my throat is a little bit on fire, so I need so маленький перерыв to change wheels with my throat. Okay. Спасибо. Okay, now it's time to do our regression. EViews has quite a good bunch of regression. Of course, сами известный software для panel data, econometric, это стата, я знаю. Но, во-первых, сейчас EViews 9 это много лучше, чем стата для нескольких вещей. Конечно, стата есть большая литература, большой номер пакетов, которые можно использовать для микроэконометрика. Но для начала, для самой простой или самой известной регрессии, думаю, это уже достаточно. Of course, if you want to do some new method, something very recent or some difficult or some very complex estimation method for panel data, of course, stata это, думаю, самый лучший. R еще начинается. Сейчас, например, есть очень известный package R, который это сделает, называется PLM package in R. Но он сделает классические регрессии, fixed effect, random effects и все. Не сделает. Но, большой но. Вы знаете, what we call panel data econometrics in statistics is called longitudinal regression. And actually, if you meet with a statistician, I don't say that he will laugh at you about panel data, but because you know the tradition of longitudinal regression in statistics is much older than the panel data. You know, in panel data we have Xiao, Bai, all these people that use a lot of they create panel, but it's a very specific part of the biggest family of longitudinal data. And in R, there are a huge number about longitudinal regression. Imagine most of panel data that we do is linear regression. With longitudinal regression in statistics, you have all type of nonlinear regression. You have generalized linear model, generalized additive model. So you have a lot of many possibilities. Okay. What we call fixed effect in statistics is a random intercept, basically. So just to tell you, in statistics it's classical to have random intercept, random slope, stuff like that. So in R, of course, there are very few packages about panel data econometric, but there are a lot more about longitudinals. And when you understand the connection between the two, you understand that longitudinal is a very large family. So I really advise you to have a look at that, because it's much more flexible environment than the very small one of panel data econometrics. I think probably the field where panel data econometrics improved with respect to longitudinal models is about dealing with stationarity or cross-sectional dependence. You know, most of longitudinal model statistics consider data stationary. Okay, this is not the case, unfortunately. Most of panel data are not stationary, so you have to deal with that. And this is where the panel data literature has improved a lot compared to that. So this is just for curiosity. So how we can make a classical two-way panel data regression? So I take my variables, Silk Road, make money, computer science, and Bitcoin, open as an equation. Okay. So let's put, without the constant is not needed. So Bitcoin, so the first variable is my dependent variable, all the others are my regressors. Panel options, here you have to check what kind of panel option. Remember the regression of, just Pakaju, by Wilson and Davidson, here, you see the regression we have state effects, cross-section effects, and time effects. Okay, here I can do the same very simply with cross-section fixed, period is the time, fixed. Okay. Also here you have a lot of different convergence methods. White is for heteroscedasticity only in the cross-section, white period is for heteroscedasticity both only in the time series dimension. You have the cross-section for both. So there are many options. Okay, let's keep cross-section short, but let's start with ordinary to see the difference. And then press OK. Okay, so this is the result. Let's put in the center. So if we see this fixed regression where we have two-way fixed effect in time and for the cross-section, it seems to be that the only variable that is able to explain the Bitcoin searches for this sample seems to be Silk Road. Make money, computer science are not significant. So let's try other, this is with ordinary. Let's try with some more complex, a period sure, which is a little more complex. Also, they're not significant. Let's try with another variance metric. Let's try with the wide period. Also, the result will not change. So only Silk Road for this sample seems to be the only variable that explains the Bitcoin search. So mainly for illegal activities. Of course, this is a small example, and you have to be careful. Also, for example, just to tell you, really, here I only use only 3 cross-section. Just to tell you why this is only a limit. If I try to estimate the random effects, of course I get an error. Why? Evius tell you immediately why. Random effects require number of cross-section bigger of number of coefficient. Of course I have only 3 cross-section, UK, China, US, and 3 coefficient. Silk Road, make money, computer science. This is not good. I told you this is only because I want to show an example. So we keep the fix also because it's better in case of biases. So just to tell you how to do it. Also, a last comment before we go to lunch. Remember, in a panel you have to be very careful about this possible, say it's called idiosyncratic, let's say, effect by the cross-section unit or by the time unit. As I told, if you don't consider that, you may have biased estimates. Let's see why. So we estimate this regression, this panel, without this effect, which is called pool regression. So no fixed effects at all. Oh, you see the result is completely different. You see, the make money in computer science seems significant, and the Silk Road basically is significant. So you have to be very, very careful when you have panel data. This is why you have to consider fixed effect or more complex specification. In the panel data, you have to consider this specific idiosyncratic effect for the cross-section and for the time series. Okay. Without, you see, the estimates are much different and the p-values are much different. So this is a classical example where you have to be very, very careful. So always consider a fixed effect or more complex specification. Davis and Wilson, they did a good analysis because they consider both. In fact, it's not surprised that once you consider this fixed effect and the time effect, the result do not change. In fact, I told you, once we consider the fixed effect, so panel option fixed, and we change the covariance method, nothing changed. So this is really to tell you a little bit of, the risk. So just to summarize, if you want to work with the panel, always check for fixed effect, random effect, classical thing in panel econometric, classical. Because as it was clear for this simple, very simple example, really, it was made only an example, I didn't want to explain it, really, just to show how to do it. If you don't consider that, really, you can have biased estimate. Really, this is could be a classical example of panel data econometrics 1 in the second lecture. So you have to be careful about that. Also, consider alternative method for the variance covariance matrix. So for the standard errors, if you see that the standard error and the p-value do not change much with the choice of the variance covariance matrix, then this means that the result is robust, and this is very good. So try alternate specification. Remember, and then with this I finish. Also, here of course I use only 3 variables, but in general try alternative specification. See if your results change. The more variable you consider, the more robust are your results. Okay? So, that's all for today. Thank you for the attention. Tomorrow, what we'll have tomorrow? Tomorrow we'll go probably for, say, to the hot topic. See, how do we find the price for Bitcoin? What is the price of Bitcoin? This is the first part. The second part of the lecture tomorrow is instead, okay, given this price, are there any bubbles? Есть пузыри или нет? Как мы можем знать? И последний topic, если время остается, это about price discovery. What is price discovery? Price discovery, which is my last topic, is important particularly for traders. Because Bitcoin is traded in many exchanges, many exchanges. If you are a trader that do a lot of operation, you want to know which exchange has the biggest effect on the global price. Is the one that makes the information move, make the price move. So there are some techniques to find out which exchange give you this is called the price discovery, the biggest share in the information. This is very, very important for traders because if you are work in a trading place which is very slow to react to news information, this is bad for you because basically you are the last to move and you can have losses. So it's better to be in trade that are very fast. Okay, so this will be the last stop. Again, thank you and приятного аппетита.
Остальные потом.
Секундочку, пожалуйста, можно вашего внимания? Я по организационным вопросам. Сейчас в половине второго у нас будет обед.